Hey everybody, Ronarray here, and since Last Epoch launch is pretty close, I want to showcase my build that I'm going to start 1.0 with. It will be Ice Sorcerer, because I really enjoyed the whole Sorcerer idea and how well ice skills are integrated into the game. I also wanted to share it with you because I think it will be really strong in the early game. So let's go and see how the build works. So talking about our main setup of the skills, I would say the whole kit of the Ice Sorcerer right now is pretty simple. Our main skill is Glacier, which is completely amazing. It creates 3 blasts right there, and it deals crazy damage with all 3 of them, but especially with the last one, so that's the first, second and last. Last is the biggest one, it's doing crazy damage and we need to boost it further. Let's go and look what kind of setup of the skills we have and how we can utilize it. First off, we are using the Glacier itself. In the passives, we need to go to the right first, so Breaking Point works pretty good for additional damage and mana efficiency because Glacier costs a lot of mana. Then you're going for Greater Destruction, that way you'll be able to get like largest explosion damage higher, and this is our main damage, so it's pretty important. After that I'm taking Mordita's Bane just because we need more damage against the bosses. After that we are going to the left instead, we are taking Chilling Force just to chill enemies, then Greater Chilling for more damage on largest explosion again, and Endless Force for hit damage against chilled enemies. With such combination we are just doing a lot of damage basically, and that way it works so good just so we can one-shot enemies or do a lot of damage to bosses. So at the teleport, we are taking points mostly directed for its mana efficiency. We are taking Crystalline Passage because it will give us armor and some cold resistance, and Flicker for mana efficiency. That way we can always use teleport while we are running in the locations and we're not losing a lot of mana. After that I'm taking Wormhole for global cooldown recovery and Ether Barrier because that way we'll be able to gain more ward constantly. So first go for Flicker, then for Ether Barrier. After that you can get like Stable Bubble or Out of Mind because we will have some intelligence stuck in our passive tree. Moving forward for Focus, we mostly need to use Focus itself just to recover our mana. So when we go out of mana like completely, like that, we can just click Focus and restore our mana pretty fast. That's pretty much how it works. So at other times we are using Flame Ward just to protect ourselves, and we're using Snap Freeze just to freeze enemies, especially bosses, so they will not run away and we will just hit them with Glacier. We're also using Teleport for a movement skill because it works just too good. So going back to our 3, at the focus we need to maximize the amount of mana it recovers. So first we are taking Mana Flooded, then we are taking Desperate Meditation, and Null Profusion. That way if you will go to negative mana, it will be much easier to restore it. After that I'm going for Revelation, because that way we will receive more ward and more mana from Burst. Mind Shell, because that way we'll be able to get more ward, Ever Ward, and Mind Shield. All of that is pretty much working pretty good, and also Energy Infusion can give you free haste for just like 1 point, so take it because it's completely amazing. Going for Flame Ward is pretty much the main skill that we protect ourselves with in the bad situations. So I'm currently taking Stalwart Defense because it will give me like more ward, Barrier to the maximum amount of points because that way you'll just receive less hit damage, and Shrewd Shielding for mana efficiency. After that we can take Mental Aegis because that way we'll be able to cover some damage with our mana, and Warmth. I think Warmth is pretty good because that way we can get mana regeneration all the time, and we need to stay at top of mana constantly because it will make sure that we can just spam our skills. Going for the Snap Freeze, it's the least important skill, so it should be taken the last. That way I'm just taking Cryomancy for freeze duration, then Shiver Armor and Sap Warmth. With the Sap Warmth we'll be able to steal cold resistance from enemies, so it pretty much will boost our damage against them, so it's a pretty good passive that could be used on the offensive. On the defensive part, Cryomancy will rise the freeze duration, so just take all the points here and make sure enemies will always stay frozen. overall passives, I think it's pretty important to make sure we are picking everything right. At the start, we are picking Scholar for mana and health, together with Arcanist for some resistances. After that, I use 1 point for reactive ward, because that way we can still receive some ward when we are dropping below 70% of health, and I think it works pretty good. Then I'm spending points for Mage Flurry, that way we'll just receive cooldown recovery speed for teleport, and cooldown recovery speed for Snap Freeze. I think it works pretty good, we don't need more than 3 points in there. So after that I'm taking Preparation, it's pretty unusual. I don't think Preparation is good for endgame builds, but for early game builds it works completely amazing. My next spell is doing 140% additional damage and can slow enemies. With the Glacier, so Preparation is here, you can see when you have it, like an icon here. With Glacier it works so good because you're not really casting it often, you just run around enemies, and when you cast it, you will deal more damage. So I think Preparation is a good way to increase it. After that I'm taking 3 points to the Knowledge of Destruction, just enough to go for the Sorcerer itself. In the Sorcerer, I'm focusing on 2 points to Arcane Momentum, just to open Essence of Celerity. I'm taking Calculated Destruction, 5 points, I think it's pretty important, because that will give us additional critical strike chance per intelligence. After that I'm taking Mana Shell to 4 points, because it's an amazing skill right here. And Wisdom for 8 points, because we will need a lot of mana and also mana regeneration. We will also get more mana regeneration per 100 maximum mana, which works completely good as well. Moving forward, it's 1 point to Cryomancer and 5 to Chill to the Bone, because Cold Penetration and Cold Damage Leech works really good for the build. I'm also taking Lost Knowledge, because with Lost Knowledge we will constantly receive Ward. You gain Ward based on your current mana when you use a skill that costs at least 40 mana. So every time when you use your main skill Glacier, you will receive Ward. I think it's pretty cool. After that, I'm taking 3 points to Elemental Ascendance, 5 to Arcane Insight because it's intelligence, chances for a pretty good buff, and 5 for Spellslinger. I think Spellslinger is pretty important, it gives mana regeneration and spell damage, and we need mana regeneration to cast more proactively. After that we can get Archmage, like all 5 points, and Recollection. That's pretty much when the leveling builds, like early game build, stops. And you can just go through the passives in that order. When you will have more, you will be able to finish the Archmage, finish the Mana Shell, and finish Elemental Ascendance. But I think at the higher levels we will be able to go with different approaches, and I will definitely think about doing another build video when I will explain the endgame part. So talking about our items, it's pretty simple. Since it's pretty much progressing and early game build, you don't need to take a lot on the items. At your wand, I pretty much recommend to prioritize spell damage or elemental damage. You also will need to prioritize spell damage up there because it's pretty important. On your body armor, elemental resistances and mana works pretty good. We need a lot of mana, so try to stack mana everywhere where you can. It's pretty much goes for helmet, which you can just go with protective one with a lot of armor and critical strike avoidance to just survive better. If you are going to use offhand catalyst, I recommend to take one with elemental damage as well, and increase critical strike chance good too. Elemental resistances or anything like that will help you to survive better. If you are going with like two-handed, you can pretty much just focus on elemental damage, or cold damage, or spell damage. All of them will work just perfectly. At the rings, I'm pretty much taking elemental resistance just to feel better, together with health and increased elemental damage if possible. So at your relic, I recommend to stack mana, because that's probably the best place right now to stack mana without any issues. And at your amulet, critical strike chance together with elemental damage is probably the best choice. At the gloves, it's mana gain, health and elemental resistances. Cast speed is nice, but not really that mandatory. When you're picking idols at the start, you can pretty much just pick any idols that you will be able to get. Anything with resistances, pretty much alright. So just pick anything that will work for you at the moment. And focus on leveling and progressing further, because you will need to change that in the endgame. So it was my early game Glacier Sorcerer build. Right now I think it will be really strong for early progress, for going up to the monolith, and progressing the monoliths themselves as well. I think such setup should work just well in the endgame too, but we will see how well it will properly scale. Thank you very much for watching, I hope you will be able to enjoy build as well. Please like and subscribe for more RPG content, and see you next time.